Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Leadership Thread with Dr. Peggy Polonis.
I'm Dr. Peggy Polonis. Join me on each episode where I unravel the story that shaped leaders, tracing the thread that led them where they are today. Because leadership isn't born in adulthood. And thank you once again for joining us on the Leadership Thread, education, ethics, and sustainability.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Rich Lowry, you remember Mickey Lolich?
You know, I do. A little bit before my era. I certainly remember Rusty Staub, who had some of the biggest forearms in baseball, if I remember correctly, and a long career as a pinch hitter.
Well, he did later in his career. Right. I mean, he was a great player. Montreal, Houston, the Mets. And you know what's funny, too? This is Rich Lowry, the editor of the National Review. Rusty, who they called Le Grand Orange, he had the red hair. But he became an icon in New York City because he owned, not far from the United Nations, a ribs place. Rusty Staub's Ribs.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and it was a very, very popular place. It was like Tennessee Mountain was on, down in Lower Manhattan. Rusty Staub's Ribs were a big deal. In fact, there was one game where the Mets were playing the Houston Astros. And the pitcher for the Astros, Charlie Kerfeld, this is the urban legend, was in the dugout. He was hungry. And Staub had his restaurant deliver ribs to Kerfeld in the dugout or out there, with the rest of the pitchers. And they called Kerfeld in the game in the 8th inning, and on his jersey was a bunch of barbecue sauce. That was so great. That was the urban legend. So Rusty, he's gone too. Rusty died. Mickey Lolich now dead. But that was a moment in 1976 that I was not very fond of. All right, Rich Lowry, let's get right to the meat.
Speaking of players of that area, just one last thing. I was at this Yankee memorabilia show over the weekend in Jersey.
Oh, wow.
And met Craig Nettles, who's 81 now, and Goose Gossage and Bucky Dent and Jazz Chisholm.
Bucky's a very good friend of mine. Jazz is playing now, but Bucky's a very good friend of mine. Greg Nettles was an amazing third baseman. Amazing. Those World Series against the Dodgers, and Greg was a very good offensive player, went to the Padres too, but he was a wizard defensively, and the Dodgers had a guy named Ron Say, who was also a defensive wizard at third base. And you remember that, Rich?
What do they call him? The not the duck, the
penguin.
The penguin, yeah.
Nicely done, Lewis. Yeah, no, those were great days. And, of course, if you don't know, Rich is a big Yankee fan. Where was that show? What part of Jersey?
It was in Secaucus. It's an outfit called Hall of Fame Signings. It was amazing. They had about 80 Yankees across 3 days.
Wow.
I would have, my wife limited how much I could spend, but I would have gone crazy. And these were the heroes of my childhood, that 77, 78 team that was so good.
Was Reggie there?
Obviously, Bucky Dent. Reggie was there. Dave Winfield was there. David Cohn, David Wells, Domingo Herman, not a big deal, but he also threw a perfect game. You almost name a Yankee, and he was there.
Yeah, but what about the 77 team won the World Series, 78 team won the World Series, beat the Dodgers, and they lost in 81 to the Dodgers. But what about the 4 Joe Torre teams? Was like Derek Jeter there and Tino, those guys?
No, but Bernie was.
Oh, Bernie. Nice.
I'm trying to think of someone else from the
Andy Pettit?
Maybe that was a little lacuna in the show. O'Neill wasn't there. I think Bernie might have been the only major representative of that era.
Wow. Sounds like a lot of fun. I'm a Met fan, but that sounds like a very cool couple of days in Jersey.
I was thinking, when I was going to this, how many teams can support that kind of show? I think the Mets have a fan base, but, are the Royals having shows like that? Where you have fans across decades, eager to meet?
No, I mean, you can do that in Boston, going back to the Ted Williams days. You can do that in Chicago, the Cubs, more than the White Sox. You can do that in Philadelphia, certainly. And those are the, Chicago, like I said,
Dodgers,
Los Angeles, of course. So those are the cities the big cities that people care about sports. They are very provincial. Yeah. But we'll see. There's it's a new America, and states like Florida, for example, where Vinny Viola's won the last 2 Stanley Cups, and maybe the Dolphins get good one day. The Heat had their time with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Shaq and Chris Bosh and all those guys, so we'll see. I do want to go to Minnesota, though, because yesterday Tom Homan announced that about 1/4 of the immigration officers are coming home. They're going to ask about 700 of those ICE agents, immigration officers, to leave the state of Minnesota. As I asked President Trump on this show less than 2 weeks ago, are you ready for some type of compromise? He said, yeah, I think I am. And clearly that's what this is, a de-escalation in Minnesota. So don't tell me that Trump isn't willing to sit down and make a bunch of doofus Democrat mayors and governors happy in a place like that, which has become the embarrassment for the United States.
Yeah, so he's clearly sent there to declare victory and go home, or declare victory and at least ease up. So I hope the declaration of victory, he's not putting too sunny a face on it. You know, unprecedented cooperation from city and county jails in Minnesota might not mean much. You know, to be unprecedented, you wouldn't need a lot. But if they're getting more cooperation, great. I'm of two minds of this. On this, I think it's horrible to get chased from the city by a mob, which is kind of what is happening. On the other hand, the 2 months prior to this operation, we were still doing immigration enforcement. We just didn't have 3,000 guys in Minneapolis. So I don't think the whole project rises and falls on what happens in Minneapolis. I think the Homan approach is kind of correct. It's, emphasize more of the worst of the worst rather than picking up random people. But something he's talked a lot about we haven't seen much of yet, do more worksite enforcement. And go, I think they should go to a meatpacking plant and arrest the CEO who's employing knowingly a bunch of illegal immigrants. Make it clear that you don't like that guy either.
Right.
And I think that might help politically. And you got to squeeze out the job market because there are illegal immigrants here who are gangbangers. Obviously, they got to go. But most people come here just to work. And if you make it harder to work here, you'll get the self-deportations they want without necessarily kind of the optics, tough guy optics in Minneapolis that have turned off a lot of people.
So I asked on Monday morning when we were covering the Grammy Awards, which I didn't watch 1 second of, but of course I became all too familiar with these morons the next morning, what the ratings were. And we found out yesterday that these Grammys were the worst rated Grammys ever. We thought last year was bad. This year was even worse. They're chalking it up to young viewers, not old people like me and you, Rich. Young viewers not watching, running away. So nobody watched it, but it did receive an awful lot of conversation when idiots like Bad Bunny and especially Billie Eilish. I mean, come on, stolen land. That means all your money stolen, your property stolen. That was so ridiculous. So I don't want to talk too much about it. We've talked about it for 4 days, but you look back at what happened on Sunday night. How horrible was that for the music business?
Yes, it's terrible. I'm like you. I haven't watched one of these shows in years and years and years. But you see the clips. And one, they're so pathetic because a couple people decide this is what we care about this year. They all got to wear the pin and they all got to make the speeches whether they know anything about it or really care about it or not. And then just the idea that this is stolen land. We bought a lot of it, first of all, at the beginning. And you can look at these deals like where you are right now. We got Manhattan for some trinkets or the Dutch did. Why the Native Americans did do that? They were ripped off. Well, they had plentiful land, and then they had these trade goods from Europe that they'd never seen before and incredibly valuable. So these deals made sense, especially if they could get rifles. And you know what they would do with the rifles? They'd steal other people's land. So every time they say, we got to give this back to some tribe, then you look at that tribe, and it was the most bloodthirsty people imaginable who'd conquered some other tribe and wiped it out. So stealing land was the norm throughout almost all of human history. And thanks in part to us, we have a system where you have borders, and they matter. And these people, ironically, they're now saying the border shouldn't matter.
It's crazy.
Big advance.
And, the stealing land stuff, and this is what really infuriates me and frustrates me, but you'll never hear this on MS Now or CNN. And this goes back to the Redskins. You know how much I love Bill Sims. He was on this show 2 weeks ago. Him and I are good buddies. But when the Washington Redskins were thinking about changing their name, you know who was yelling and screaming about it? Bill Sims. White guy from Kentucky living in Franklin Lakes. You know who wasn't screaming about it? The Indians. They love it. They want to be named in these high schools out there by Brian Kilmeade on Long Island. And guess who's not complaining about stolen land? The Indians. But guess who is? White multimillionaire Billie Eilish. When will people stop speaking on behalf of the Native Americans, especially when they're white, privileged, pandering? Stop it.
Yeah. The Tonga people, who I guess were out there in the LA basin before we showed up. Did you see their statement? They're like,
yes,
well, we've never heard from her. She is on our land.
Great.
Her mansion should become a Tonga community center. If
Right.
He means it.
They said that. Yeah, they said that.
If you're thinking about changing schools, why wait? At Manhattan University, love those guys. You don't have to start over. With transfer-friendly pathways, your credits count, and you keep moving forward. From day one, you're part of Jasper Nation, preparing for the real world. And with New York City just a train away, opportunity is everywhere. Ready to move forward without missing a step? Visit manhattan.edu/transfer and enroll today. Manhattan University. Don't start over, move forward.